Is this working? Yeah. Good afternoon. Yes, I would like to talk about human voice and instrumental sound, embodied perception, and performative space. To start with, I am interested in perception and body, environment, and all we can agree that every individual has a personal way of speaking, moving, also own gestures, own style in a way, and even a personal way of breathing and posing. And how does this transfer into our way of making music? Is this perceptible in our sound, in the sound that we produce when playing an instrument, for instance? One first reflection is the sound stems originally from the body. Like the phenomenon of a human voice is rooted in the body because it comes through the mouth, and facial cavities work as resonators. We have all the vocal cords and phonatory system. And voice is also crucial to identify a person. It's a mark of identity. According to philosopher Luciana Caballero, in Western culture has become much video-centric and logocentric, like if we look at the history of Western culture. Idea comes from the Greek ideo, I see, and behind it there is all this concept of logos, in which like concept and word are in the foreground. And this philosopher invites us to rediscover the phoneme, which is logos vivified through the throat of flesh, pleasure and pathos of the vocal expression. And voice also reveals what is hidden and the subliminal. And my research is called the Human Voice and Instrumental Voice, Comparative Study in Timbral Content, and it investigates the relations between spoken language and instrumental sound. Like many have noticed similarities between the timbre of the spoken voice of the player and the quality of the sound of the instrument. Sometimes we recognize this peculiar sound, and I'm investigating it especially with string instruments to give a limit to this research. I'm doing this through recording sessions and then spectral analysis, and I've been collaborated with Juho Laitinen, Dominic Schlinger, Sergio Casujon, and Anni Elif Egecho, and I will continue also with other musicians. For instance, in experimental psychologies, it's been noticed many parallelism between the language and the music. For instance, in this research, temporal modulations in speech and music, they say the rhythmic structure is fundamental feature of both speech and music. Both involve sequences of events, can be syllables or notes, which have systematic patterns of timing, accent, grouping. Speech rhythm differ between languages, and languages are classified according to stress, syllable, or mora, and so on. And especially what is important, speech rhythm vary across speakers. So we speak at different rates and pose with different patterns. So some analysis suggests that humans can classify speech and music, distinguish them based on temporal modulation information. A high degree of consistency is found within the category of speech and music, and these statistical regularities may be the intrinsic signatures of both speech and music. Then I'm interested also in studies that regard the embodiment, neurosciences, cognitive psychology, and they show the importance of environment in the shaping of the individual, and how, for instance, non-conscious cognition, non-conscious part work along with consciousness and with biological and technical material processes. So what we experience as consciousness, well, as other also psychologists said before, is just a little part, and then there are also other processes, and these processes have to do, for instance, with perception. Perception can be, as we know, like much faster than any conscious reflection. And then, for instance, Damasio has affirmed that there is no self without awareness of and engagement with others, and we see this very well in music. And because this is an artistic research, then there is a plan with 5 concerts, and in these have been conserved also with space, considered as acoustic space or performative and virtual space, for instance, shaped by the electronics or live video. And then I'm interested in making this space multidimensional and non-hierarchic and decentralizing the listening point that is not to have always the same frontal position of the musicians on stage and the audience sitting a bit passively, like in front of it. And so there have been already 2 doctoral concerts, Imaginary Spaces in autumn 2016, and Voices and Spaces in last autumn, and both they happen here. And the next one is scheduled for spring 2019. It's called Voice and Cello, and will happen probably here too. So to see shortly a couple of images of these concerts. In Imaginary Spaces, then it was important to have a moving listening point. The audience was sitting on the floor or could choose actually how to be positioned in the space, and also they had a chance to perform with sonic objects, and you see some of them in these pictures. And I've been collaborating for this with Juho Laitinen, Roberto Pugliese, and Marek Bluchennik. We have an ongoing collaboration with Process Live Video and Sampo Pyhala. And last concert, it was a portrait concert with 6 compositions related one way or another with this theme of voice and quality of sound and electronics. And there was a new version of a string quartet, Suono, with a spatialization live video, and a new work, The End of No Ending, like for 2 singers, percussion, ensemble, electronics and live video, and this was with Usinta Ensemble, and I collaborated with Juan de Dios Magdaleno for the live electronics and spatialization, and by the way, he's doing doctoral research in Mutri and in Mute as well about spatialization. And next concert, in next concert I will concentrate especially about this relation between the voice of the performer and the instrument, and collaborating with Anni Eli-Fegechow, and there will be works for voice and cello with 1 performer, and a new work for voice and cello, 24-tone accordion with Veli Kujala, and ensemble with the Funen Ensemble, and also electronics and video. And so we can then see a couple of examples, or like a short video with some examples from Imaginary Spaces and from The End of No Ending, this new piece of last autumn. And both pieces, they are quite long actually, like the first one about half an hour, the second one 20 minutes, and it is originally in 4 parts. So here we see excerpts from 3 parts because of lack of time, but yes, hopefully this will work. Yeah. If the light could go down. These are a few links, and